10 things I wish I knew before my first Disney cruise. Gonna let you know some of those insights that I wish that I had before I went on my first Disney cruise. Let's get to it. Hey everyone, Dave K here with 10 things I wish I knew before my first Disney cruise. You may be saying to yourself, what am I going to do on this cruise? What's it all about? Let me tell you some things that I wish I knew before you jump on that first cruise, or maybe before you jump on that 40th Disney cruise, so that you'll be able to plan a little bit better, be more prepared, have some insights that I didn't have in the very beginning. Number one thing that I wish I knew on the Disney Cruise Line before I took my first Disney cruise is when you're sitting at dinner, at the dinner table, you can order as much table service food as you want without having to worry about any additional charges. It's all included, except for your family's judgment. That's not included. You get that as an additional bonus. But if you order 4 desserts, you're good. You can go ahead and order 4 different desserts. Or if you want to eat only desserts for the meal, or if you want only the appetizers. I'll tell you something I'm thinking about right now on my next cruise. I'm thinking I'm just going to order maybe 3-4 ahi tuna towers when I go to that particular restaurant, order that particular meal. I'm thinking, you know what? Let's just make the whole thing, for appetizer, I'm going to have 2 ahi tuna towers. For entree, make it 2 ahi tuna towers. And that's my dessert's ahi tuna tower. So you can really do whatever you want here with those menus, and there's no additional charges. So if you're worried about, I can only get 1 appetizer, 1 entree, that kind of thing, don't worry about it. Get whatever you want. They're more than happy to make sure that you are fully enjoying your dining experience. Number 2 thing I wish I knew before boarding my first Disney cruise. You'll find the cabins are fairly small. It can be pretty tight in those cabins. You'll see not a whole bunch of space for your luggage. You should be able to put the empty luggage or maybe the full luggage underneath your bed, underneath that main bed in the room. But you'll see there's that pull-out couch there. Maybe you've got a flip-down bed that comes out from the ceiling, but not a whole bunch of room to leave stuff or to just kind of hang out. So make sure that you're thinking of that in advance. Maybe consider packing lighter than you normally would for a trip of the same amount of days, just because that space is that much more limited. And also keep in mind the fact that all the food you're going to possibly need is right there on the ship. So at least you don't have to worry about packing snacks like I've done in the past for Disney World. You bring a couple protein bars or something like that in your pocket. Don't have to worry about any of that on the cruise. All that food is provided for you. Also, kind of tying into that one, is you can't bring food back into, once you've left the country, you can't bring food back in. So, something to keep in mind there as well. No reason to bring food with you on the trip. It'll all be provided, and you can't bring anything back into the country as you're coming back in. So, something to keep in mind there. All the food's taken care of. Consider packing light, especially with regards to food stuff. I wouldn't bring anything. Number 3 thing I wish I knew before boarding a Disney cruise. You can feel the rocking back and forth of the ship, maybe while you're sitting at the dinner table or just as you're walking around the ship, or maybe in your cabin, and we'll dive a little bit more into the cabin one here in a second. I'll stop rocking around, but it is something that you can feel. I feel like, depending upon you might feel it earlier on or a little bit later on. For me, it's kind of like this, where my brother and sister felt it earlier on, and it took me a couple days, and then I started feeling it. And by the end, we all felt fine, and then it felt normal to get back. It felt weird to get back on land at that point. But some people use, I think it's a Dramamine or some sort of attachment they can stick, kind of like a sticker you can stick to the back of your ear here to kind of help with that nausea. Might help if you're worried about the rocking of the ship. Thought it was fine for me, but it is something to be aware of. So this kind of ties back into that dinner comment. If you're sitting at the dinner table, consider maybe if your cabin's too close to the back of the ship or to the engine, maybe you don't want to eat too much dinner if you're going to be feeling the rocking of the ship all night. Just something to keep in mind. And this is that 4th tip about the cabins, the rocking of the ships, depending upon where your cabin is on the ship. You talked about you might see it in the dining rooms, but in your cabins you might feel it as well, especially if you're closer to that engine. So what I'm thinking is further to the back and lower to the ground. You might feel that rocking of the ship a little bit more, especially in your cabin. So if you're further to the back, lower to the ground, like let's say deck 2 aft, you may want to consider just how much you want for dinner, especially if you're eating a variety of unique food items that you're not used to, right? Like trying, the first one that comes to mind for me is oxtail. If you're having some oxtail soup, I'm like, should I have oxtail soup if I'm in 2 aft and I'm about to go to bed momentarily? It's totally your call, totally up to you. I totally understand. There's different perspectives on this, but this is just sort of my helpful tip. I don't see myself necessarily getting oxtail if I'm staying in the back after the ship. Just a kind of a random thought that I have that might be helpful to you. Tip number 5 of things I wish I knew on my first Disney cruise. Cookies 1 and Cookies 2, if you're going to Castaway Cay, Cookies 1 and Cookies 2 are not created equal. And more or less what I'm talking about here is, I'm actually talking about the adult cookout versus the kids area cookout. I'm not sure that's Cookies 1, Cookies 2. I think those two are both in the kids area, but I'm talking about the adult cookout being not necessarily the same as the kids cookout area. So if you're looking for different types of chips, maybe you want some different fruit, you might find that there's different items available in that kid area than there is on the adult beach. My experience so far has been there's more food options in the kids area. You know, they've got more variety of fruit and some chip flavors. It's not necessarily a huge thing, but there are a couple things you might find at one place that aren't at the other, or vice versa. So if you're looking for a particular, again, could be soda maybe, if certain soda machines don't have certain flavors of the soda you're looking for, you might find it on the other part of Castaway Cay. Now, is it worth it to you to travel all the way over to the other part of Castaway Cay just to get that one item or that one soda you're looking for? That's up to you. But something to keep in mind is it's worth checking both out. Let's say you're on your second cruise, maybe you want to check the other one out as opposed to the one you went to last time, so that you can see them all, kind of get an idea for what that difference is, compare the two, and see what it's like. Tip number 6 for things I wish I knew on my first Disney cruise. I feel like this one is especially useful and important for most people. I feel like this is a very general one that can apply to most people. And it's lunch is provided on Castaway Cay, but it's not provided on any of the other islands. You may know this, or you may not. So you will get food on Castaway Cay. Don't worry about cookies. Barbecue is going to be out there on Castaway Cay, I guess, unless there's some crazy weather going on. But otherwise, if you're going to the Bahamas, you're going to Key West, you're going to Miami, you're going anywhere else that's not Disney's island, the food you're going to be on your own for. So there's a couple of options on this one, and I have a couple recommendations on this one. First recommendation is eat a nice big breakfast before you get off the ship. I personally always prefer a bigger breakfast and a smaller dinner. Kind of eat in that triangle, upside down triangle shape. Biggest breakfast, smallest dinner. But another piece on this is maybe, again, if you're getting off the ship, you want to plan around those times you're getting off. Maybe eat that big breakfast right before you get off. Or maybe you're planning to come back a little bit early and having a late lunch when you come back. A couple things you can keep in mind, like, okay, I don't want to worry about eating on the island or, you know, that sort of thing. Maybe spending money on the island or trying to figure out what food out there sounds good or is safe or what's good quality, because maybe the country requirements aren't the same, right? There's no same food and drug kind of stats listed. Oh, this is an A restaurant or a B restaurant, depending upon where you go. So maybe you're just like, I'm just going to play it safe, eat on the ship. And so you come back kind of early and have a later lunch. You know, it's your call, but just wanted to let you know, food is available on Castaway Cay, provided for you. There's food on the other islands, but it's not provided for you. It's not included. And you kind of have to figure out on your own what's good. So totally your call how you want to go about doing that one, but wanted to give you that heads up. Tip number 7, you need your key to the world card. That's your room key and your ID everywhere you go. So every time you get off that ship, no matter where you are, you're gonna need your ID and your key to the world card. My recommendation, maybe, it's up to you, but maybe you want to consider putting that ID in that lanyard with the key to the world card. That way, you'll always have it, and you don't have to worry about going back to your room because you forgot your ID. Another thing on this one, I'm giving you all these bonus tips in here. Another thing on this one is, on your first cruise, you got to bring your own lanyard. But then your second one, you're a silver level club member, and they give you the silver lanyard. So make sure you have a lanyard for yourself for that first cruise, and then you'll get silver ones or gold ones or whatever level you are on your second cruise and later. So don't forget to bring a lanyard if it's your first cruise for each cruiser. Tip number 8, different ships have different boarding times and they have different docking times. So depending upon where you go, not just different ships, but also different islands. So let's say, okay, on this trip we made it to Castaway Cay and we're getting there at 9 a.m. and we're leaving at 5 p.m. But we're going to Bahamas as well. In Bahamas, we're getting off at 11 a.m. and we got to be back on the ship by 4 p.m. That happens. Different islands, different times. You got to get on, got to get off. So make sure you study that. You know when you need to get on, need to get off. Don't just base it off the last island you were on. Make sure you read up on that itinerary. That way you can plan for each destination exactly how much time you have on the island and which of those activities that you wanted to do on the island you should prioritize based on how much time you have. Tip number 9 ties into that last one regarding the boarding times and the getting off the ship times and all that good stuff. you could be delayed due to weather. So if there's intense weather, rain or winds or whatever it might be, you might actually get delayed on going into port. So make sure that you are aware of that as you're planning your cruise. What time of year do you want to plan your cruise for? You may want to consider, oh, well, the weather might be tricky. It might be hurricane season if we go during that time, so we might end up missing Castaway Cay. And sometimes it's a risk you just got to take, but sometimes you can plan around it. So it really depends on you. But make sure you keep that in mind, as you could be delayed on your trip, or you could miss certain destinations based on the weather. The whole itinerary could change, and it could change for the better if you like certain adventures. I mean, personally, I feel like it's changed for the better for us at one point, where we wound up getting a double dip on Castaway Cay. Super fun adventure on that one. It did change for the better, so you never know. But it could be subject to change depending upon the weather. And tip number 10. The cruise flies by too fast. It just goes by so fast, especially that first cruise. For me, when I got on that first cruise, I wish I'd known that 3 days was going to be like nothing. It was going to fly by instantly. So you got to soak it in from the moment you step on board. Be ready to run around and have a great time from the second you step on board. So for me, it's been, let's sit down, let's get some good food, and get started off with some great food. When we board, relax, find that time, maybe get in the jacuzzis shortly after boarding. But it's just really, how do you start your adventure off right, so you can really relax and start soaking it in from the moment you step on board the ship and until the last moment you step off the ship. It's a fantastic experience on the Disney cruise, and so it's something you really got to enjoy and appreciate and soak in, at least from my perspective, once you do it. And a bonus tip here for you. I can't necessarily validate this one because I haven't actually done it, but this is what I've heard. This may be beneficial to you. I've heard that Disney cruises are the best cruises. I haven't done any other cruise lines, and I still want to try some other cruise lines, so we'll have to see what I think when I get around to doing those. But the thought on this one, or the tip on this one, is if you want to try other cruise lines, maybe try some of the other cruise lines first, so that once you've been on the Disney one, the other one doesn't seem as less wow as had you done it before the Disney cruise. So maybe if you're like, well, I want to try Royal, Princess, and Disney, maybe that's the order you do them in, instead of Disney first, and those others don't wow you as much. That's what I've heard. I can't validate that because I haven't been on other cruises. I really do want to go on other cruises and try some other cruise lines at some point. But so far, all of my experience is with Disney cruising, and I do love Disney cruising. The food's fantastic. Destinations, Castaway Cay. You know I love Castaway Cay, one of my all-time favorite spots to go on a Disney cruise. So in case you wanted to know that as well, one of my favorite destinations right there. Boom, see if you can make Castaway Cay happen. And it's just such a great time. Thanks so much for being a part of the adventure with me today. What did you think of these top 10 tips I wish I knew when I went on my first Disney cruise? Do you agree with these tips? Are there any other tips that you have for those of us who may yet be on our first Disney cruise, those of us who hadn't had the chance to go yet? Love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that thumbs up button, give it a like, and if you haven't already, for more fun adventures, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to stay informed of future adventures. Thanks for being a part of the fun with me today, and until next time, play on.